All right, so this unit was made up, before we get to the stop and frisk part, this unit was made up of a unique set of individuals, right? So like half of them, or more than half, to quote the article, had been found guilty of misconduct at least once a time in their career.
Yeah. Much higher percentage than typical.
Right. So if you look at the rest of the police department overall, and I don't think people understand this as much because they paint the whole departments as being this one unified thing, is like most of the complaints are racked up by a certain subsection of the department.
Yeah.
Especially the brutality of things. Now, the good officers may cover up for them, but that's a whole nother issue. Most of those complaints are racked up by a small number of officers, right? A small subset. This small subsection within the NYPD ended up in this unit.
Yeah.
Over half of the unit.
Yeah.
It seems like were these people, did people apply to this unit, or were they targeted by Eric Adams' buddies?
So yeah, I think you got to understand who led the unit to understand who was kind of in it overall. And there were really two guys who created the unit and led it, both of whom had close relationships with the mayor. And one was a guy named Kaz Daughtry, and Kaz Daughtry had been let's go over his history as a police officer. It had included being found to have lied about a case by a federal judge. It had included, him threatening to shoot a motorcyclist, and he was shot up the kind of chain of command in a way that was he hadn't even qualified to be a detective, and he was made a detective, and then suddenly he was overseeing swaths of the police department. So that's one guy, right? The other one was named John Schell. John Schell was a long-standing commander, but was known for, among other things, having shot a young man in the back a number of years ago, and wasn't formally found to have lied about it, but had told a very dubious story about it. So those are the two guys in charge of the unit, and they said, we want aggressive guys. Guys are, who know how to take it to the bad guys. And by the way, this isn't an assigned thing. This is all at the start on all a kind of off the books thing, where they're not even formally assigned to the team. And it's what one person described to me, a former NYPD commander described to me as a ghost unit, because you don't even know who's in it. You don't know, where they serve, what they're doing. And that's not just a problem for civilians. That's literally the NYPD itself. The commanders and the people in charge of oversight didn't know. And so, it's as pretty typical when you have a unit or an institution that gets to live in the shadows without any transparency, without any accountability. Well, it shouldn't really surprise you if they end up doing, a higher proportion of bad shit.
Yeah, Chicago had that unit called Special Operations Section.
Yeah.
And it had a street unit of over 100 officers, and they would take over a part of a district. And no one, if there was a 911 call, they were the only officers that could show. No beat officers could be in that area. And they went bad. They got caught for robbing and beating up gang members, and then suspected drug people, and then just people off the street, and false arrest. It went really bad. And when they were arrested by the local police for corruption, one guy flipped and recorded another guy setting up the murder of some of his fellow team members because he worried they were talking to the feds. and that
Yeah.
guy went to federal prison for 20 years. This is what happens when you let teams go wild with no
Yeah.
oversight. There
Yeah.
is going to be problems.
And I do think there's also, I spoke to a number of uh, former cops, current cops who emphasized to me that there's an additional problem. I mean, that is all a problem, but there's a problem on top of it, which is when you have these teams that are roving all over the city, and they don't give a shit about developing rapport with people in the community, right? They don't give a shit if they piss people off because they'll be somewhere else tomorrow. They make actually the job for beat cops harder. And so you have these beat cops who resent these units, and I understand why.
Yeah, there's a big problem that people who want to see departments reformed and operate better are losing and missing, and that bad cops and bad units make the jobs of good cops and good units
Yeah,
harder, right? When
yeah,
the police union goes and defends to the hilt a cop who murdered a black kid for no reason, they are worsening the job conditions the other 10, 12 in New York, 25,000 other cops have to work in, because now their
hmm,
jobs just became more dangerous to protect this one guy who's obviously bad, obviously committed a murder on video. We had that in Chicago, we lose that. They don't seem to care about the rest of the people. It's about protecting the worst of the worst, no matter what
yeah,
happens. I was in a watch commander's office while that unit was still roaming for a grad school assignment. And he starts screaming. He's like, give them all CRs, internal complaints. He yells at the sergeant. Like, what's going on? He goes, SOS is in my district without telling me. They're chasing someone with a gun. They have a gun. The person they're chasing has a gun. They're not on the same radio as my guys. So now my
yeah,
beat cops are out there and they're going to see two guys running with guns. They don't know one of them's a cop. He's in civilian clothes. They could get shot or shoot the other cop. He goes,
yeah,
he's putting my guys at risk because they're just cowboys. But
yeah.
that always gets lost in this. It's very sad.